Hello everyone. So today what I'm going to do is I am going to show you my method for how to memorize the Bible, how to memorize entire chapters easily without having to, get stressed out or anything. Keep in mind this is not just to memorize a verse here and there, but this is actually intended to actually teach you how to memorize entire chapters, right? Entire books of the Bible. That's the purpose of this method, okay? So it's not really intensive and it's actually a very simple method. So I'm going to show you how it works. So, of course, obviously, the first thing you want to do is obviously you have to pick which chapters that you want to memorize. What chapter of the Bible do you want to memorize? What would it be? Well, obviously, if you're a straight up beginner, the first time you're using this method, you obviously want to start with books of the Bible that are one chapter, right? So this would be like Second John, Third John, Jude, Philemon, and then of course you have Obadiah, right? Those are five books of the Bible that are just one chapter. So what you should do is that you should start with those books, and then once you've memorized them, and then you can move on to other books that are a little bit longer, like for example Titus, Haggai. Um, I guess you could say like First Timothy, Second Timothy. Stuff that's it's not too long, all right, but nothing like Isaiah, for example. So with that being said, once you actually pick the chapter that you want to memorize, okay, here's how the method actually works. And you might be wondering, well, why do you have this highlighted here? What's the purpose of that? Well, basically how the method works is that you take whatever verses you want. So in my case, as of right now, I'm going to be memorizing Job chapter 5, verses 24 and 25. How do you memorize these verses? Here's what you do. The first thing you do is that you take a, a piece, a little small piece of this verse, and the idea is that you want to basically take this verse, or I should say, take this piece that I just highlighted, and it has to be a very small piece, nothing too large, nothing too small, but just kind of like something that you can chant over and over and again in your head, while you're doing other things, right? So for example, obviously, in this case, we have, and thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace. Of course, I'm not going to take the whole thing, ending with the semicolon because that's a little bit too long. But we're not just going to take "and thou shalt know that" because that's also too short. So something along the middle would be "and thou shalt know that thy tabernacle." It's not too short, it's not too long, so that should be good. So now what you're going to do is that for 2 minutes you're going to set up a timer, and for 2 minutes you're going to be chanting that over and over again in your head. So for 2 minutes, let's say I just turned on the timer, so now I'm going to be saying and thou shalt know that thy tabernacle, 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 and thou shalt know that thy tabernacle. And you just say that over and over and over again until the timer runs out, until you hear, this voice, which is, you know, yeah, that's my alarm sound. Or that's kind of a weird sound, but the timer goes beep or whatever. Okay, then you stop doing that, obviously. And then what you can do is you take a second piece of that. So you can say, okay, thy tabernacle shall be in peace. Let's take that one, for the second piece to chant over and over again. So for 2 minutes, now you're going to be chanting, thy tabernacle shall be in peace this time. And now you're going to be saying for 2 minutes, with the timer obviously, you're going to be saying, thy tabernacle shall be in peace. 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 And you say that over and over again until the 2 minutes runs out. And again, of course, just so you visualize this, of course, I'm going to play the same sound again. Oh, the timer ran out. So I was saying, thy tabernacle shall be in peace for 2 minutes. The 2 minutes have expired. Now what? Now, the next thing you're going to do is that you're going to take these two pieces that you were just chanting, and thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and you're going to chant that for 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So now, if you actually set up the timer again, now you're going to set it for 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and now you're going to be saying this for 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Now you're going to be saying, and thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace. And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace. And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace. And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace. So the idea is that you say that over and over and over again, the highlighted part, you say that over and over again for 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So now you're actually connecting the two pieces together. And that's what you should be doing because you want to be able to quote the whole verse. And then, of course, you move on to the next part. So then you say, and thou shalt visit thy habitation. Okay, not too short, not too long. That's good. And then you take that 2 minutes again. So for 2 minutes, you're saying, and thou shalt visit thy habitation, and thou shalt visit thy habitation, and thou shalt visit thy habitation. 2 minutes run out. All right, you're done. Now, for 2 minutes and 40 seconds, you're going to be saying this. And then you'll be saying, and thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation. And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation. And you're going to be saying that over and over and over again, repeating that for 2 minutes and 40 seconds. So notice how if we keep adding more pieces to like the full, I guess you could say, basically we're kind of attaching all of these pieces together so that way we can actually say the whole verse from start to finish. That's the idea. And the idea is that the more pieces you add onto it, you're gonna increment it by 20 minutes more, right? And then of course, the last way to finish this verse would be, let's do this: habitation and shalt not sin. So then you take this part, after the 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Now you're gonna be quoting this, the highlighted part, habitation and shalt not sin, and you're gonna take that and you're gonna quote that for, like I said, 2 minutes, right? So in other words, each individual piece, when you quote it by itself, you're going to quote it, you're going to repeat it over and over again for 2 minutes. When you put all them together, for every other piece that you put in, the idea is that you're going to be adding 20 more seconds to it. So it's 2 minutes plus these other, sets of 20 seconds that you're adding onto it. So after we're done chanting this for 2 minutes, habitation and shalt not sin, habitation and shalt not sin, then what you do is that you take the whole verse. So now you're going to add in, so you're going to be quoting the whole verse for 2 minutes and 60 seconds, which obviously is just 3 minutes. So in other words, for 3 minutes now, you're going to be quoting the whole verse from start to finish. And you're going to be doing that, over and over again until the 30 minutes expired. So now for 30 minutes, you're going to be saying, and thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation and shalt not sin. And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation and shalt not sin. And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and thou shalt visit thy habitation and shalt not sin. And you say that over and over and over again until the 30 minutes, I'm sorry, not 30 minutes, until the 3 minutes expire. This is how you memorize verses in your head. The idea is that you take each of these individual pieces, 2 minutes, and then after you memorize that individual piece, you basically tag it on to all these other pieces that you just memorized, and now it's just you put it all together. And the idea is that you can keep doing this over and over and over again. And of course, you can take longer pieces, like maybe, and thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace. Maybe that's not too long for you. You might be okay with that. You might take something a little bit shorter. I mean, who knows? It's your, the idea is that it's your choice. But the idea is that you're taking all these pieces together, and the idea is that you're saying them and you're repeating them over and over again. When you put them all together, you're going to be quoting them for 2 minutes and all these other, seconds, like 20 seconds, 40 seconds, 3 minutes, right? The idea is that you're basically adding them together, so that way, the idea is that you're repeating it over and over again, but you're actually connecting those pieces together, so you can actually quote the whole verse, okay? And you would do the same thing here. You would say, for 2 minutes, you'll be saying over and over again, and thou shalt know also that thy seed, and thou shalt know also that thy seed, thou shalt know also that thy seed, and do the exact same process again. When you connect the pieces together, when it's 2 pieces, it's just 2 minutes and 20 seconds. When it's 3 pieces, it's just 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And then you just keep going on and on and on until you've memorized the entire verse. And in fact, these verses are very short. So you could just say, oh, how about just put them together like this? Job 5, verses 24 and 25, and just put them together just like that. And that could work, right? So the idea is that if the verses themselves are very short, you can just treat them as if it was just one verse and not 2. And if you use this method, this will help you memorize verses better if you're reciting them from memory. And then, of course, obviously, throughout the day, while, after you've memorized this, obviously, then obviously you repeat it in your head again, every other hour, every other 3 hours, or however you want to do it. The idea is that you want to be able to recite this from memory, okay? And the idea is that as you go further on into the chapter, you have to connect those verses back again. So in other words, let's say you memorize this. Well, what about verses 1 and 24? Well, obviously you have to start over again, go back to verse 1, and then recite all those verses in order until you get all the way down to verse 25, the last verse we just memorized. And if you do that, then you're connecting all the verses together to form that one chapter. And that's what you should be doing to actually memorize the chapter itself. And of course, you can memorize all the verses you want, but you have to make sure that you connect the verses in order and make it so that way it's all one chapter in your head, okay? And that's pretty much it. That's my method. It's a really simple method. I use it a lot. And of course, right now I am memorizing Job 5, and I'm almost done. Pretty much, it's just that I have to focus on these verses here and actually do that method with these verses. And pretty much that's really all there is to it. It's not complicated at all. Of course, I showed this to you on a Word document, but make sure that when you actually do memorize them, you should memorize them basically, with an actual physical flashcard that you write with a pen or a pencil, and you're going to write down the verses themselves onto it, so that way you can take it with you, whether you go on the bus or whether you're at school or at work or whatever. The idea is that you can carry it with you, so that way you don't have to pick up your phone and open the app or whatever. Okay, and that's pretty much it. It's a very simple method. It's very effective, and there's really nothing crazy about it. Pretty much anyone can do this. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And of course, obviously, what I'll do is that in a later video, I'll show you that I'll show you that there's another thing that you have to worry about, which is how to retain a chapter, right? How to make sure that you do not forget this chapter, later on in life, for example, right? And I'll cover that in the next video. So in the next video, I'll go over, like, let's say if you already memorized the chapter, then what should you do in order to make sure that you do not, forget chapters or anything like that. I'll show you there's a method for that as well. But that's it so far. I just wanted to show you my method for how I memorize verses. And to be honest, it's been helping me a lot. I've memorized so many verses. If you'd like, I can also record myself, reciting a chapter just to show you how effective it really is. If you'd like, obviously. So with that being said, that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed this video and you thought it was cool, that's great. So yeah, definitely give me a like, subscribe, and if you like to see more content like this, then of course, obviously, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff.